shit, it's a dinosaur. Holy shit, what the fuck?
And it's Newman, and he doesn't have mail, and he gets killed by a dinosaur. Yeah.
Welcome, dead and lovely listeners, to a very special wildcard installment of Dead and Lovely, your absolute favorite, typically horror movie review podcast, but today it's a little something different. Here with your hosts, me, Uncle Ben Eller, and who's that man I got on that west coast on the other end of this phone call here?
It's the Mad Wanderer himself, Steven Spratling.
Oh, Hollywood Steve, how have you been doing this week, man?
Pretty all right. The Mad Wanderer is my Wu-Tang name.
Oh.
Yeah. Found that out, I think, back in the MySpace era, and it stuck in my head, the Mad Wanderer. And I've never called myself that until just now, and then I realized, man, that sounds stupid.
Sick.
Anyway, I got a little bit of a sinus infection. We had this, what do you call it? Hell on Earth in Los Angeles. Oh. It was 102 degrees.
Holy shit.
For about 4 days there, we had like high 90s up into the hundreds temperatures, and it was just hideous, and didn't get a whole lot of sleep for a few days, and then I woke up one morning with a sinus infection. So I might sound a little stuffed. I don't know.
You know, it's funny, Steve, because I've kind of got the exact opposite thing going on over here in the Tennessee. This is
oh shit.
Yeah, this is kind of right on the heels time-wise of the massive Hurricane Harvey there.
Yeah.
And
shout out to people in Houston.
Yeah.
Hope you're
my
okay.
God, dude, it's unbelievable the stuff those people are going through, man. But we're kind of getting sort of the tail end of the after effects of that. So actually here in Tennessee, it has felt like late October here lately. There's been like zero humidity. It's been maybe about like 60 or 65, which right now it's like the first week of September. It's usually about like fucking 95 or 100 degrees here right now. This is very unusual for us over here on the East Coast. So actually, typically anytime the weather does like a really drastic 180 like this, it absolutely wreaks havoc on my bodily system. So actually Saturday, I woke up with like a just skull-crushing headache and slept till about 4 in the afternoon because my head was just exploding. It was terrible.
Talking old man shit with Ben and Steve.
But other than that, it's been pretty good. And actually, the sudden sort of chill in the air has really, man, it's really gotten me in kind of the Halloween spirit. Even though, again, this is like first week of September as we record this. We get in the Halloween spirit real early, as we've talked about on previous shows.
Uh-huh. We do too. Actually, we have Halloween stuff up kind of all year because we have Halloween dish rags and stuff that we always use.
Yes.
We also have like a Halloween blanket that always stays on our couch. We're big fans.
Shit, yeah, man. Well, you know, it's funny too. You mentioned that big old hot streak you guys are having right now because I just recently watched a movie, actually last night, concerning a very, very, very warm day in 1989 in New York City. It's a movie by old Spike Lee called Do the Right Thing. Have you seen that?
I have, and it is very warm.
I just watched it for the first time ever last night. My wife and I sat down and checked it out. Man, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's raw. It's really good. Yeah.
There's I don't know. There's something about those old movies by directors who are doing, you know, only their first or second like major production movie, like when you watch Clerks or when you watch Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction or Do the Right Thing, where it's just like it's totally made by these young guys who are just fucking flooring it. You know, they're just taking gigantic risks, doing stuff that doesn't necessarily even make complete sense, but it's so wonderful to watch that kind of energy on screen. And it's also really sad watching that movie, which came out in, 89, almost 30 years ago, to see how little things have changed since then in terms of race relations and so on. It's incredible how slow change has been.
Yeah, not much has. Yeah, that's really sad.
It is.
Well, you know, I you know, speaking of things that haven't changed, I watched a movie called Monster Squad.
Oh shit!
And it's just like today, where we got Draculas and stuff walking around.
So I've been meaning to watch that movie forever, and like I keep checking on, you know, Amazon, Hulu, and all this stuff to see whenever it's streaming. And every time I check, it's not streaming anywhere. But actually, I was looking through our DVD closet the other day, and we fucking own a copy of it, and I've just never watched it.
Yeah. Well, you gotta watch it. I mean, it's fucking awesome. I mean, I actually watched it in conjunction with this movie because I was trying to get into the childlike mindset.
Okay.
And so I was thinking of movies that I really liked as a kid, and Monster Squad was one I really liked. And then rewatching it, I was like, this is a fucking great movie. Like, it wasn't one of those where I was like, oh, that's embarrassing. It was like, no, this is perfect. It's co-written by Shane Black, who's done tons of great movies. Yeah, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, etc.
Fucking like, Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapon, yeah. I mean, it was the movie he did after Lethal Weapon. So,
oh my god, I didn't realize that.
It's a horror movie, and it has Dracula, the Wolfman, like the creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein, Tom Noonan playing Frankenstein. It's fucking great.
That's awesome, man. I definitely have to watch that now.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll like the it's like unironically fun. Like it does. There's no fucking around. Like it's corny at times, and it's really like, you know, it's about kids, but it's like more Bad News Bears kids than Goonies kids.
Oh.
So it's got that like edge to it, but it's also like, you know, it's sort of a campy horror movie, but it's also got a vampire throwing dynamite, so that's awesome.
Okay, so I'm on board for that.
Yeah, and it has the best cute little girl line of all cute little girl lines ever, which is, "Please don't go Frankenstein."
Oh,
yeah, it's adorable.
That's sweet. I definitely got to watch that, man. I think the only other really killer stuff I've been watching this week is the other night I was sitting down to practice a set for a cover band that I'm playing with here soon. It's about like and it's like a 3-hour set. It's a lot of fun, but it's just a ton of music. But
hey, anything that is 3 hours, you gotta be careful. You might end up stranded on an island. So
3-hour tour.
Yeah,
you got a good point there. So a lot of times whenever I'm practicing like really long sets like this, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just put on a movie with, you know, subtitles that I've seen before, and I'll put on headphones while I practice the set. That way I can just, you know, watch and read the movie as I go, because that's actually kind of a thing of mine. It's like I like to practice sets for bands that I'm playing with while I'm being distracted, because I know that's how it'll be at the gig. You know what I mean?
Right.
So while I was doing that, I watched Friday the 13th Part 3 and Part 4 the other night, which was just a fucking blast.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are absolutely so much fun. 3, I've said is my second favorite, but I don't know.
Is it
I
really?
I think last week though I said that 2. No, 2 is my second favorite.
2 is really good.
There's 2's so good. 1's so good. 3 is, I love the Dream Warriors aspect. I love the effects. So fun. Anyway, so how did you feel about him?
I had myself a great time watching Jason just fucking hack them kids down. They were doing all kinds of silly shit, just all kinds of fucking banging out there in the woods and skinny dipping and just doing all kinds of awful stuff. And then that old Jason, he came in hot and just fucking annihilated him. It was a lot of fun, man. Those are just great fucking flicks.
Just realized Sick Steven totally mixed up Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street there. Oh, man.
Sickly Steve.
And right now, currently, sipping on a delicious drink. The stores are running low here in the Spratling household, and I'm currently drinking pineapple coconut rum with Fresca. Peach Fresca.
Oh, God. What?
Yeah.
You're going to attract like some college freshmen there if you're not careful.
Yeah, well, I mean, I see them at the door right now, but Bill Gates Jr. is holding them back. You know how he feels about fun.
Is it kind of like that scene in Salem's Lot where the kid's at the window?
Yes, it's exactly like that scene. I watched Fright Night last night, too.
The original?
And, yes.
Awesome.
So good.
Yeah,
so
fun,
good
man.
still. So good. Really love that movie.
You know, like, that's the thing is, like, movies like Fright Night and movies like the Friday the 13th flicks I was just talking about, they're horror movies, and they're disgusting and brutal and stuff at times, but they're still really fun.
Yes.
There is such a lack of that in horror right now, because it's like stuff is either just, you know, trying way too hard to be super dark and brutal, or it's just like, you know, campy to the point of not even... Yeah, you know, almost being like a parody or a pastiche of the horror genre. There's, I don't know, that's just such a fine line to tread, but those old movies just do it so fucking well, and they make me so happy to watch.
Yeah, they're really fun. Fright Night is so good. And my wife hasn't seen it, so later we're gonna watch it. I told her I watched it, and she looked it up, and she was like, "Oh, I would like that." So, go check it out.
Awesome. You know, currently I'm sipping on a delicious Polar Springs cranberry lime natural seltzer water, which is just wonderful.
Delish.
Earlier today, I was sipping on some, as the Russians say, little water, aka vodka.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about the word vodka, Ben?
Tell me.
Well, voda, is the word for water, obviously.
Voda.
Vodka, the ka makes it diminutive. Now, that does mean like little water, but it adds an element of like closeness and like collegiality or friendship. So it's like little friend water or little water friend. It's a beloved thing in Russia for sure.
It's honestly.
Water. Yeah, honestly, just walking around parks in Russia, there were tons of vodka bottles everywhere, but a lot of beer. They drink a whole lot of beer over there out of plastic 2-liter bottles.
Holy shit, really?
Yeah.
Damn, man. So, I don't know, like, for listeners that don't know, old Sickly Steve here, whenever he was a Moor man, he served a mission over in Russia for how long?
2 years.
2 years. So, while you were over there and you were around all this vodka and all this beer, is there any kind of, you know, stigma or taboo about alcohol like there is in the States over there, or is it just like common as day?
Yeah, I mean, if you're just like shit-faced drunk in the middle of the day, everybody's like, hey, what are you doing? Don't do that. But there's no stigma to, you know, if it's the weekend or whatever, maybe even a weekday. There's no shame to sitting with your friends and having a beer on a summer day for sure. Like, people just be hanging out outside because it's hot in the summer in Russia, like really hot. Yeah, it can get real hot there.
But nobody's really uptight about it.
No. I mean, well, there are obviously, strangely enough, there are still people who are strongly tied to the Russian Orthodox Church and really believe in those tenets, but they're few and far between.
Interesting, man. What an interesting culture that spawned famous bear wrestler Zangief.
A very common name in Russia, Zangief. Everyone you meet, it's like, oh, hello, I am Zangief. They all speak... Russian is just English with a Russian accent.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I am Zangief, comrade, motherland.
You know, earlier tonight, though, I'll tell you what else I was sipping on before the Polar Springs and before the vodka. I was sipping on some mighty fine homemade pho that my wife make.
You know what? I saw pictures of that on the Instagram, and it looked goddamn delicious.
It tasted goddamn delicious, man. This is one time a couple of years ago, we have some good friends whose families owned a Vietnamese Thai restaurant, and they came over to the house and showed us how they make pho.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was the best day fucking ever. We just spent literally all day in the kitchen with our friends, drinking and making pho and like spring rolls and stuff like this. It's so good. But then like a year or so ago, my wife, she make her own pho, and it was really good. But then today, she make her own pho again, and it turned out just ridiculous, dude. Like, I keep catching, I don't know if it's like this where you're at, but in our house, like whenever we cook something, especially if it's something really strong smelling, like a curry or something like that, you can walk through the house and it's like walking through a time machine of smell where, you're in the kitchen, you smell how the dish currently smells. Then you walk into the living room and you're like, oh, I smell where, you added the onion into the dish or whatever.
Right.
And then, like, you go to the back of the house and you're like, oh, I can just smell heated up oil or whatever. You can really kind of smell a timeline. I keep kind of walking through a house and just getting all these various stages of pho development. God damn, it was so good. I bet you guys got some good pho where you're at over in Los Angeles, don't you?
Yeah, there are a ton of great pho places, ramen places. Koreatown, of course, ton of Korean barbecue places. It's great. You can get so much awesome food here. One thing is, though, interesting. People say LA is a shit city for pizza. And I think that a lot of people probably think you can't get any good pizza in LA, which is simply untrue.
I've had a good slice out there, yeah.
Yeah, it's just that it's not New York. So you can't every other block go to this great pizzeria that's been around for 100 years.
Sure.
That makes just these perfect slices every time. But there are some really great places, and my wife and I went to a place called Prime Pizza on Fairfax. You can get 2 slices and a drink for $6. It's really good pizza. It's like made in partnership with, I think it's called Best Pizza in Brooklyn. It's the same dough recipe, the same sauce, etc. It's all the same stuff you can get in Brooklyn, and it tastes just like a slice of New York pizza. Now, I haven't been to New York in a while. Yeah. Maybe my taste buds are fooling me, but to me, it tastes exactly like it. Really good.
Well, I'll tell you what's fucking madness, dude. And actually, we recently discussed old Steve and his fam are coming back to Tennessee here before too long for a little visit. But
yep,
one thing that will blow your mind is that actually in our old stomping grounds in Morristown, Tennessee, there is a Vietnamese pho restaurant called Vietnamese Gourmet Pho, and
I've heard about that.
Dude, it's pretty fucking good.
I've heard that. I've heard it's pretty damn good. And you know what? It's one of those things, you don't have to have a tight-knit community of a whole bunch of Vietnamese people in one area. All you have to have is one good Vietnamese cook. Yeah. So, like, just because there aren't a lot of Vietnamese people in Morristown doesn't mean you can't get good pho.
It's pretty damn good, man. I don't think it's as good as, like, have you been to Beta Saigon in Knoxville?
No, I have not.
It's fucking awesome, and it's definitely not as good as, like, the stuff that fucking Kate's making in my house, but it's pretty goddamn good. And it's cool, too, because it's kind of near the shop that I teach at, the Guitar Vault, so sometimes after I'm done teaching, I'll just go swing by, get some pho, and then go home. It's pretty great.
Would you say it's fucking delicious?
I would say it's fucking great.
Awesome.
It's good stuff, good stuff. Well, I'll tell you what else is great stuff, Steve, is our wild card movie choice that we're going to be talking about today. Now, typically, listeners, this is a horror movie review podcast, but me and my man Steve here, we love all movies. All are welcome. True. All are welcome.
You're all my children now.
So every now and then we like to talk about something a little bit different, but then, at the same time still ties into the scary movie genre at least a little bit. Like, I don't see us reviewing something like a You've Got Mail or Sleepless in Seattle, Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan movie anytime too terribly soon. So usually our wildcard choices are still somewhat distantly related to the horror genre. And today we are talking about Michael Crichton's film adaptation Jurassic Park, which came out in, what year was that, Steve? 95 or something?
1993.
1993. Oh my God. So I was all of 9 years old whenever I saw this movie. Now, Steven, I assume that this was not the first time you saw this movie.
No, it wasn't the first time, but I have admitted already, I think, that this was not a movie that I much liked as a young man.
It's so strange. It's so strange to me, man.
I know. I was right in that sweet spot to really just love it, and it didn't hit me.
Wow.
I think, man, I've got a ton to say about it. I think now I get it. I look at it and I'm like, oh, I get that. Yeah, sure. That's a movie. Obviously, people like it. Like, certainly. But I have some issues with it still. It's one of these films that, for me, it could have been perfect, but, like, there's so many little things that, like, end up creating a big problem for me, like, liking it. But certainly, this movie is well directed. The special effects are great. Especially, I really like the animatronic special effects.
Oh yeah,
and the acting is superb.
I'm so excited to hear the things that you don't like about this movie, Steve, because this is one of those ones that is one of those, like, standout moments of my fucking childhood. You know what I mean? Like, I remember whenever this came out in theaters, I was absolutely elated. I'll elaborate on this in a second, but I've always been a gigantic fan of dinosaurs my entire life. So this is one of those movies that I remember that even though we were broke as a joke when I was a kid, we still managed to go and see this 2 or 3 times in the theaters because it was just so unbelievably good. And I think my mom knew, like, how much it meant to me to see this kind of thing, because basically, like, when I was a kid, I fucking loved dinosaurs. I thought that they were just the coolest fucking things in the world. And did you ever go see the dinosaur exhibit at the Knoxville Zoo?
I
don't think that I ever did. Was it the coolest?
They had animatronic dinosaurs.
Oh shit.
Yeah, and I'm just realizing now that I went there on, like, my birthday when I was very young, and I was, like, so enraptured by it that I think that might have affected my viewing of Jurassic Park, because it was like, I've seen them up close.
They don't act like that.
Like, in my little kid mind, it was like, no, they're not like that.
Well, I'll tell you a cool story, Steve. Dinosaurs taught me how to read.
Oh, thank goodness. Finally, someone admits that dinosaurs are good and they should still be around, Noah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man, he really fucking screwed the pooch on that one, didn't he?
Jeez. There should have been room in that boat.
Yeah. So, here's the deal. So, when I was a kinder kid, even around the a child, as you might say, even when I was like 2 and 3 years old, I loved dinosaurs, and I had a bunch of, like, little, toy, like, rubber molded dinosaurs and stuff like that. And my family, as basically every intelligently minded family did in the 80s, we had a set of Encyclopedia Britannicas.
Awesome. Yes, we also had those.
Actually,
I think ours from the 70s, but they were awesome.
I think that ours are actually World Book, which is kind of like Britannica but cheaper, I think.
Yeah, they were like brown.
It's kind of like an oxblood, kind of red-brown, yeah.
Yeah, we had, that's exactly what we had.
Boom,
awesome.
Dude. So I would sit there, and even though I was like 2 or 3 years old and couldn't read at that point, those books, for you guys who don't know, they had tons and tons of pictures and diagrams and stuff like that in them.
So cool.
They were awesome. Like, I really do remember just spending hours and hours looking through those things. So when I was a kid, I knew the names of, like, Stegosaurus and Triceratops and stuff like that, right? Because I'd seen them in, I don't know, The Land Before Time and fucking everything else. I loved watching anything about like those dino digs and stuff like that. We had a couple that we had like taped onto VHS that I watched a million times over. And so I would go through these world books and I'd find a picture of, you know, a Tyrannosaurus Rex or whatever, right?
Okay.
And then I would look at the picture and I'd look at the letters underneath the picture and I would just assume, okay, these are the characters that spell out Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Okay.
Because I was like 3 or something like that. So I would apparently, you know, I would grab one of these volumes and go up to my mom and be like, does this say Triceratops? Because I knew what the creature looked like, and I knew that those figures underneath the picture must be the name of the creature. So I actually learned how to read that way.
Now, your mom didn't say to you, no, that says Jesus.
That's fake news, dear. That's fake news.
Oh, that's really cool.
Good old Jurassic Park, which is what we're going to be talking about today, was based on the novel written by Michael Crichton. And for those of you guys who don't know, Michael Crichton has had an absolute shit ton of his works adapted into TV and movie format. So before we begin our review of the movie, I think it'd be a great idea if me and my main man Sicko Steve here did ourselves a little countdown of our top 5 adapted Michael Crichton works in no particular order. I'll tell you what, Steve, I'm gonna kick this thing off for us here. I'll also say there are a lot of great Michael Crichton things that I have never watched. I know that Andromeda Strain is one of those like super important ones that I hear people talk about all the time. I've never seen it. Have you ever seen it, Steve?
I have not.
Okay, so at least it's not just me. So there's a lot of Crichton stuff we have not watched. So if we leave off your favorite, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, right hard. Like, just grab the nearest Michael Crichton novel and just roll it up and just fuck yourself with it.
So my first one here, and I might regret saying this because it has been a really goddamn long time. It's been 1 week since I watched this movie. I'm talking about a little flick called Sphere that has a Sam Jackson and a whole bunch of other people in it.
Right.
I remember watching this movie a really, 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 really long time ago and enjoying it. It's a very weird kind of sci-fi flick with a whole bunch of people stuck down in if I recall, a submarine or an underwater base of some kind. And there's this huge alien sphere thing down there that's messing with their memories and perceptions of things. Again, it's probably been at least 10 years, probably longer, probably more like 15 years since I watched it. So I might go back and watch it and be like, wow, this is a fucking, hot dumpster of a movie. But I do recall liking it. Did you ever see a Sphere?
I think I did, but it didn't stick with me.
Sick.
Yeah. I really can't remember Sphere at all, but I like Sharon Stone's in it.
I think
that
so.
Right?
Yeah, Sharon Stone.
Okay, yeah, I just can't remember it very well. You know what, Ben? I think that one of the best things that Michael Crichton did was create the show ER.
ER or as it sometimes
now. This will, I don't know, maybe say a good bit about how I feel about Michael Crichton.
Tell me.
I don't really care much for ER. I liked the first few seasons, I remember, but it's a show that if I watch now, it's like, oh, why did I ever like this? It never really, I don't know, the storytelling is never really good enough now in my head, but back then I really enjoyed it.
I do remember watching that as a kinder child in the 90s. I think mainly because my mom thought George Clooney was a hunk, and she was right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He is a hunk. And he was one of the best parts of that show, and he left pretty early. So, I don't know. We'll talk more about Michael Crichton in a little bit, but I don't know that I like a whole lot he's done.
I remember watching ER a lot as a kid, not necessarily for the storylines and stuff like that, because I don't think I really got into the into the drama and the, who's shaking up with who and stuff like that of the show. Which I recall later on, like in the show, it really just became like a nighttime soap opera of like, oh, this person banged this person. Oh no.
Oh no.
But I remember
banging.
Not the banging. But I remember watching the show pretty much for the same reasons that I watched Rescue 911, which is to say, for the gore.
Yeah, that may have been the thing that I was mostly interested in. Those like real exciting moments and the gore.
Yeah, because they would like, that was the first time I think I ever remember seeing, fucking blood and guts and stuff on network TV was ER. I remember watching that and being like, wow, I can't believe they're showing this, and this is the same channels I watch like fucking Family Matters or whatever on, and they're showing this guy getting fucking his throat cut open or whatever to save his life, or like a pin shoved in his neck to make a makeshift tracheotomy. For some reason, stuff like that sticks out to me, and I remember watching it just so I could see gore. Same as Rescue 911. You remember that shit?
Yes, of course. Now, Ben, point of fact, let's just get this right so no one corrects us online. ER was on NBC.
Yes.
Family Matters was on ABC.
Oh,
come on.
Fuck me. All right.
Get
fine.
it right. Anyway, also Juliana Margulies was very pretty.
Who's she in the show?
Oh, I don't remember her name. She she has the curly hair and the dark eyes
and
the prettiness on her face. Yeah.
Right on, man. Yeah, I do remember watching that and enjoying the earlier seasons quite a lot, but not as much as I enjoyed this next Michael Crichton film adaptation.
I think I know where you're going.
It's a little talkie called Motherfucking Twister.
Woo!
Humans being and its soundtrack.
Twister's is cool. Yeah.
You remember how dope that soundtrack was?
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. I haven't seen Twister in a long time. I should probably check that out again, because I bet watching it again, it might not be as awesome, but I remember enjoying it. Helen Hunt's good.
You should definitely listen to that fucking soundtrack again and hear the Goo Goo Dolls singing fucking No Way Down at you and stuff.
Awesome. Let's hear the Goo Goo Dolls.
I don't think I'll make it on my own. Yeah.
That band basically became like the 90s soundtrack band.
Yeah. City of Angels, dog.
Yeah, there were just some tons of 90s soundtracks.
I do enjoy that movie, although, now that we're talking about it, I think it's probably been about 10 years since I watched it too. I have a feeling it's one of those that I'll probably go back and feel that like that weird that thing where you sympathetically feel embarrassed for someone who's humiliating themselves.
Yes.
I might go back and feel that, but I recall at the time really just digging that movie and thinking it was a fun watch. It's by no means great or anything, and it's very silly, but it's fun to watch.
It's got Bill Paxton. Anything with Bill Paxton is generally pretty fun to watch.
Well, and it's got old Philip Seymour Hoffman in it, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
It's kind of got a lot of people in it.
Uh-huh. It might be great still. Maybe I'll watch it right after we finish this.
Maybe I do too.
Now, Ben, the thing that I'm going to name next is kind of a cheat. It's the television series Westworld.
All right. Okay. So I have never seen the TV show nor the movie of Westworld.
I might have named the movie and then the TV show had I seen the movie, because I hear the movie's pretty good. But the television show is fucking awesome.
That's what I hear.
And if anybody tells you different, you kick them right in the taint.
Damn. Now, it's on is it an HBO?
It's on HBO. It is so well acted, very beautiful. Just every episode, just great shots, really well, like interesting lighting. I really love the story though. Like people got, I guess, a little irritated because it's one of those that slowly reveals itself like over time, and people obviously don't like waiting, especially when they think they know exactly where it's going.
Mm-hmm.
And some people were right. They were right about where it was going. But, you don't have to make a show where you're constantly rewriting everything so that people can't guess what's going to happen. So,
yeah, really.
I think that the show like reveals itself slowly and well, and everything comes together like really beautifully in the end. And the music is awesome. Like, as soon as you start watching the opening credits, you'll get into the show.
Damn.
Because the music, just like the opening credit sequence and the music are just perfect.
I keep hearing over and over from people how sick it is, and I know the premise of it and stuff, and it sounds really, 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 really rad. And we've got HBO for I think another couple of weeks. Since we had it, of course, to watch Game of Thrones like everybody else. And
right.
Now we're just going to dump it. But I think we got a couple weeks before our subscription is up. So that's on my list of things to watch. That has an Anthony Hopkins, doesn't it?
It does. It's Jeffrey Wright, Anthony Hopkins. Rachel Evan Wood is the best performance in it. She's so great.
Damn, she's awesome.
Yeah, Shannon Woodward is really good in it. It's got a lot of people in it. And it's just so well done that, especially I think, because I watched it immediately, like every episode. I couldn't wait after I watched the first episode. It was just like, no, I have to watch them each week. I think if I could have sat down and watched them all in a row, it would have been even better. But, I don't know. There's something to be said for that, like waiting a week and speculating sort of thing that really makes a show like fun. But I think that the show works really well, like just as a sit and watch in a row. Like it's so good.
I watched an Anthony Hopkins the other night in good old Silence of the Lambs. I haven't watched that for probably 5 or 6 years. God diggity damn, what a movie that is.
I said, God damn.
It's fucking awesome, man. That's one we'll definitely do on the show at some point, because that's one of those flicks, man, that like every time you watch it, it is just as good as the first time.
Was she a great big fat person?
Oh, wait, are you about a size 14?
Yeah, I think you texted me and said you were watching Silence of the Lambs, and I said that movie forever scarred the way that I hear Tom Petty's American Girl.
Oh yeah.
Because it's just like it's a like fun sort of romp, but it is not now. I forever associate it with getting kidnapped and held in a basement.
Now, what did it do for you in terms of Goodbye Horses by Q Lazarus?
It introduced me to it, so I had nothing to like compare it to. So I just thought that's what that song is. It's put your dick between your legs and dance around music.
Yeah. And it still is. Some things don't change.
Yeah. I remember actually though, like watching that as a kid and being like, oh, and going and trying it in the bathroom.
Did it work?
Like, well, yeah. Like, yep. I was like, my dick's gone. Like, I don't know. When you're like you're like at that age before you really know what masturbation is.
Yeah.
Your dick is just like a weird thing there, and you do weird shit with it.
You're like, what am I gonna do with this thing?
Yeah, why does it just hang there? I don't understand.
So you try the tricks.
I will have to I'll just go ahead and tell it. I'm gonna tell you the story of my first erection, Ben.
Sick, hit me.
I believe, not even kidding, I think I was maybe 8. Like, it obviously wasn't my first erection, because babies get erections.
Sure.
But it was the first time that I got an erection and like recognized it, and I didn't know what it was, and so I thought I had to pee like really bad. I was like, oh, I must have to pee so bad that it's filling up my dick.
Yeah.
Like,
it's in there.
Because, like, what else? You don't know how that shit works. You're just like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
So I went to the bathroom and I'm trying to pee, but like, when you have an erection, you're trying to pee, like the angle is weird. So like I'm trying to figure out the angle and like sort of standing there all weird, and like I couldn't pee. And so I was like, maybe if I sit down.
Yeah. And
so I sat down to try to pee, and it was still just raging, like just a little kid rager. And
the geometry was not working in your favor.
No, and it still wasn't when I sat down, because that thing where you gotta like still push it down.
Yeah.
So Anyway, I eventually was like, oh, okay, I guess my dick's just gonna fall off. And I was really worried.
Yeah.
And I like stood up, to get off the toilet. And just as I stood up, my uncle opened the door, and as soon as he opened the door, he like saw me and then looked down, and then he was like, whoa, sorry, pal, and closed the door. And this is seriously what happened in my head. I thought, whatever this is, it just scared the shit out of my uncle.
Yeah.
And then later, I think it was like that day or that night, we were watching the Dolly Parton Christmas special, and Dolly came out wearing reindeer horns, and my uncle went, Dolly is horny, right, Steven? And I was like, ha. I was like, ha. I had no idea what he was talking about. And it wasn't until later I was like, oh, right, okay, now I get it.
Dude, that totally reminds me of, my good buddy Mitch, who, I don't know if you know, but Mitch comes from a whole family of super, super, like, very neat freak OCD people, right? Like,
holy shit, really?
Dude,
I didn't know that.
Oh my God, dude. Anytime you go over to Mitch's parents' house, it's like, you're like, are you guys selling your house? Because it looks like your house is on the market, like ready to show at any time. So Mitch's mom used to babysit and stuff when Mitch was a kid, right? So Mitch was probably like 10 or 11, and her mom was babysitting this, fucking, I don't know, 6 or 7-year-old kid. And Mitch said that he was at the house and he remembers this happening, but I guess that's when this kid just decided to have his first boner, is when he was being babysat over there. And it happened because he was in the bathroom, and Mitch just said that, him and his mom just heard this kid like, just like screaming and stuff. And they opened the door.
He's becoming a man.
Yeah, well, he thought he was becoming a fucking statue or something. So they like opened the door to the bathroom where the kid was, where he was screaming. They opened the door, and he's got a boner, and he's just like pissing everywhere, just like a fucking fire hose all over the bathroom of these super OCD people. And he's like, it's like I'm turning to stone. What's happening? Just freaking out.
Amazing.
He thought that, I guess, like Medusa had fucking looked at his dick and was turning it to stone or something.
Hey, it's not too subtle, that Greek myth.
It's such a great mysterious thing that happens to us.
Yeah, a lady looks at you and you turn to stone. That wasn't even what happened when I was 8. I was just outside playing, running around.
Yeah.
Like, erections are the weirdest thing. For anybody out there who hasn't experienced an erection,
I recommend it.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. Is an erection fun, or it just leads to fun? It's like if somebody was like, here's a raw potato. You'd be like, okay, like I could maybe make this into something, but right now,
not so much.
For now, it's useless to me.
That's what my good buddy John used to call the old no reason pleaser, where you just get one for no reason.
Oh yeah.
You go over that particularly strong hill in the car.
Yes. Yeah. Or even back in the day on the swings.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Just suddenly you're like, oh, I can't jump off right now. I might break my dick.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think I definitely got a boner of absolute revelatory pleasure whenever I witnessed Michael Crichton's absolute greatest adaptation to film, which is otherwise known as Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park.
Because I'm telling you, man, like this movie came out and I was at the height of my dinosaur fever. Absolutely loved it. So whenever this movie came out and we saw it, like, well, I guess it's kind of like what I was talking about a couple weeks ago, and I was like, as a kid, I never would have guessed that all my favorite Marvel comics would turn into super successful movies.
Right.
Dinosaurs I thought were the coolest thing, so it absolutely blew my mind to see them on the big screen represented so absolutely beautifully in such a way that still holds up to this day in a lot of ways. Like, I was watching it the other night, and there are a few scenes that do still, I don't know, there are a few scenes that are starting to show their age a little bit, you know, where you go, okay, that's definitely fake. Like, even especially, like, actually the very first time that you see a dinosaur where they come around that corner and they see the brontosaurus, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that there's video games that actually look better than that. But in general, dude, it blows my mind that there are movies that are coming out fucking today that have CGI that is not as good as Jurassic Park, which came out in 1993.
Yeah. Well, this isn't my story, but I think it's related. Lauren Lapkus, who has a small role in Jurassic World, she told the story on the Doughboys podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts.
I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, it's a great one. She told the story that when she saw Jurassic Park when she was little, she just thought in her head, like, oh, there's a place on Earth where dinosaurs still exist, and they went and filmed there.
Wow.
Yeah, so, like, and that's a thing that I've heard from other people, that, like, you know, it looked so real as a child.
Oh, absolutely.
And it still does look good. And a lot of that is because a lot of it is, you know, more practical. Still, they use computers with the puppets and things like that. But, like, the things that look less real are the things that are completely CG.
Right. Well, they kind of did this in the same style as, like, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, where they used CGI only when it was not practical to do it entirely. And the thing about this is, too, man, that's so smart, the way that they did it, is because going into this in 1993, when they had very limited, you know, CGI resources, they still knew how to best mask their use of completely computer-generated creatures and stuff. So most of the scenes in the movie, other than the aforementioned brontosaurus scene, most of the scenes in the movie, whenever you see a fully CGI dinosaur, it is in the presence of rain and wetness.
Right.
Like the T-Rex chase scene, for example, it's raining very heavily there because CGI, especially early CGI, tends to look wet. It looks unusually shiny. So,
it really does.
So whenever you show those things in the context of it being rainy and wet, it makes sense. Or they're in, you know, a lot of fast motion and the camera's moving and so on. It really does help to disguise the CGI element. Whereas so many, dude, especially so many fucking horror movies these days, just full on, you know, full Monty, show you the monster or whatever, the creature in full, in daylight, in, you know, natural light or whatever. And it looks like shit. Whereas the makers of this were so clever in the way that they used the CG. Although there's really quite a lot less CG in this than you think there would be, because as you mentioned, there is a shit ton of animatronics and puppet work and stuff.
Yeah, Stan Winston from Pumpkinhead fame.
Pumpkinhead, go listen to our Pumpkinhead episode. It's episode, I think, 2, isn't it?
Yeah. Also listen to our audition episode to hear more about dinosexuals.
Yeah.
Yeah, the animatronics are good. Like, they still look good. I still enjoyed seeing that stuff a lot. And the CG is, I mean, you can tell when it's there, but when you think, like, well, this is 1993, it's like, well, yeah, that looks way better than I would have expected.
It's unreal, man. It's unreal to think that they were doing those kinds of things with that level of technology. I mean, dude, you got to think, like, back then, that's when, you know, I don't know, a 1 megabyte hard drive was like a closet. You know what I mean?
Yes. Like, I remember 93, my cousins got a computer, and they got, maybe it was 93, I think Myst had come out.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember playing Myst and just being like, what? This is insane. And then, you know, of course, you see stuff now, and Myst is like, oh, okay, well, that was terrible. So this, when you think about it in that term, like, this really does hold up in a great way. Like, because the computer-generated imagery that had come before had all been sort of the gimmick of the movie. Like, it was just like, oh, you'll get to see this interesting, like, trippy sort of thing or something like that. But for this, like, for the CGI, they wanted to just, I guess, bolster the animatronics and really bring to life dinosaurs to create this world. And I think, you know, the way they use it and the way it ends up looking is, it holds up.
I think so too, man. And really, there is so much animatronic stuff in the movie that I don't know, man. It just kills me to see how easy it is, and the cheap way out that we use all the time, just to use CGI in flicks all the time. When, dude, a really well-made puppet or a really well-made robot just looks a robot. It just looks a million times better because it's real. It's a real physical object that's being lit by real light. And there's so many scenes in this that I still have a hard time telling how they did, or like what was real and what wasn't. I don't know. It's really incredible.
You and your reality-centric vision.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to live in reality. Jeez, man.
But you know, there's
the Earth's flat.
Get with it.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out a way to bring up the Earth being flat. I think we gotta mention it every episode,
yeah,
right?
I think it's kind of becoming like a regular theme.
Right. Yeah. Because just in case you're just tuning in and you don't know this, some people believe the Earth's flat.
It's true.
It's crazy.
They do that. So yeah, the effects in this movie are absolutely groundbreaking, and I remember that's one of the things that definitely blew my mind as a kid, is seeing these kind of dinosaurs on screen represented in such a completely beautiful and believable way. Now, Steve, what do you think about the characters in this movie and their development and so on?
I think that it's a real problem.
Okay.
This movie has some real problems. And first and foremost, it is, who is the protagonist of this movie and what is their story?
I would assume it's fucking Grant, I guess.
So, if Grant is the protagonist of this story, then what we're presented with is that his problem is that his girlfriend wants him to have kids and he doesn't want to have kids.
Yeah.
His girlfriend thinks that he's bad with kids, but he's not. He is fine with kids. Mm-hmm. He never grows in any way in relation to kids. At the end, he is hugging two kids and she looks at him like I've convinced him to want to have kids. Mm-hmm. But he hasn't said I want to have kids. He's just fine with kids.
Okay.
From the beginning, from the moment she says he's not good with kids, he was being good with a kid. A kid was being an asshole, and he talked to him like an adult and let the kid understand, like, I'm an expert in this, and it is interesting.
Yo, I think you're talking about how he fucking came in hot and talked some shit to the dream child.
Yeah, that weird-looking kid, yeah.
Those haunting fucking Alaskan husky eyes.
Yeah. I mean, from the beginning, we're given the idea that he, one, isn't good with kids, and two, that he's not good with computers. The computers thing...
He doesn't like new technology. He likes old school stuff. Because, like, at the first of the movie, when they're doing the little digging thing using the computer-generated imagery based on the seismographs and stuff, he's like, oh, you know, soon you won't even need shovels. You won't even need diggers or whatever.
Yeah. Like... So, like, the idea is that he's supposed to be won over by these kids. He's not won over by them. He's just fine with kids. He just obviously doesn't want to have kids.
Well, the other main character is Laura Dern. What is her arc? Because I'd say she's probably equally important.
She has essentially none whatsoever. And here's the thing that I would say about her, Dr. Sadler, is that she, who thinks that he's bad, I guess not good with kids or whatever, she sees the kids as a tool she can use to manipulate him into wanting kids.
Okay, so she's
not good with kids. Yeah, she's not good with kids.
All right, I see you.
So anyway, like, her story is, I want kids, 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 I want kids. Oh, also, I'm a badass, but I want kids. Like, there's just like a brief moment of her being awesome, and then, and the thing is that, like, the two female characters in this movie are, for some reason, like, from time to time, dumb. Yeah. Like, they don't understand things that they obviously should. She's a paleobiologist, and Chaotician is very minimally explaining the butterfly effect, and she's like, oh, it's going over my head. Yeah. I'm just a girl. Girls ain't supposed to get math. Like, and then also the little girl, like, she says she's a vegetarian, and then later the little boy has to explain to her what a herbivore is.
Yo, like, and also motherfucking later, Lex, the fucking pro-vegetarian hacker girl.
Yeah.
She's eating fucking Jell-O, dude.
Yeah.
She's eating fucking ground up horse hooves, dude.
She didn't say she was vegan, man. I don't know.
Such a fine line all the time with these goddamn lines.
So, like, I the other person that could have the story arc is Richard Attenborough, Hammond.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Who is great in this. Again, everybody's great in this. Laura Dern is awesome, and her character is not good. Like, it sucks that she's so good, and she could have been playing this badass from scene to scene, but they throw in the, well, he doesn't want to have kids, and I want to trick him into it. Angle. That's
true. That is kind of her main kind of arc, isn't it?
Yeah. But Hammond, his arc is, I guess, clearer. Uh-huh. He starts out very hubristic. He believes that he can make this work, and he keeps with it for a very long time. And I'm not even really sure at the end that he's convinced, which is the only reason why I say that there doesn't seem to be a character in here that has a full arc. Because, like, in the end, he seems to be just more like convinced to put it off until he saves his grandchildren.
Yeah, I can see that, man. I can see that. Yeah, I guess I see what you're talking about. So you're saying that there's not really a character in this movie that has a complete 180 turnaround, change of heart, progression as a human being by the end of this movie.
Yeah, so in the end, the story is man versus nature, and what should happen, at least in some way, is that by being in conflict with this nature, and also we have man versus technology as the B story.
Well, that's kind of like every Michael Crichton story ever.
Yeah, but by being in conflict with this nature, like, the hero should come into an understanding of themselves as more natural, closer to the earth, and more of a beast, which maybe can be, we can throw that onto Grant's story, that he finds within himself a parental desire, which is, more natural. I mean, he finds the eggs, he's dealing with paternity throughout, but again, in the end, there's nothing expressly said, is there? Like, he never says, like, let's have kids. Like, it's just like he's got his arms around the kids, which he's done a number of times up to that point.
I mean, I kind of got the impression that he grew a little bit more fond of the kids throughout the course of the movie. I'm trying to think exactly what made me think that, as far as any terms that he really became endeared to them, but I just think that I kind of got the impression that he sort of warmed up to kids throughout the course of the movie a little bit, but maybe that's just kind of, viewer bias. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that does happen for sure. I think, though, that it doesn't, for me at least, it doesn't resolve the issue of whether he wants to have kids with Dr. Sattler. Like, right. Just because, like, I like kids. I always have fun with kids. I've used to babysit all the time. I'm a big fan of kids. I don't have kids right now because I don't want to have kids right now.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he doesn't want to have kids right now. It doesn't mean he doesn't like kids. It doesn't mean he's not good with kids.
Sure.
So, like, there does need to be something maybe a bit more express at the end. Like, something more overt than something we've already seen him do with the kids.
My favorite thing about Laura Dern's character in the movie is her incredible powers of profanity.
Yeah. Goddamn!
Dude, there's that part where, like, during the T-Rex chase scene in the Jeep, she turns around and she goes,
yeah,
shit, 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 shit. Which is like, I couldn't even tell what she was saying until I watched the movie with captions.
Uh-huh.
And I realized she just screamed shit a million times. And then, yeah, dude, that scene where she's down there turning the breakers on and that, like, raptor like busts in and she turns to the camera, she goes, God damn! It is the best goddamn in film history. It's the fucking best.
There's not a bad performance in this movie.
No, dude, I think everybody
good.
does a good job. I really, really do, man. Fucking.
And Laura Dern is great.
Yeah.
She's so good. And that I think is what upsets me more about her character. Just like, also with Sam Neill, it's like, he oozes that, like, confidence and stuff, but he also seems to like the kids. Mm-hmm. Like, I think maybe Offset, like, he's probably just good with kids. Because, like, he doesn't play well he doesn't play the, like, upset that the kids are around sort of thing, which is what makes me doubt this, character arc. But he's so good in it that, like, it makes me feel like, well, maybe he wasn't even told he's not supposed to like the kids.
Well, what do you think about a Jeff Goldblum in here?
He's insane. He's so fun.
I know.
What the hell is he? Like, yeah, what?
I know.
He says shit that I feel like at times it's like, that wasn't in the script. There's no way. He just said that. Like, he's an insane person. I
like, too, that he's such a hunk throughout this movie. Like, even after he gets attacked by the T-Rex, he's like... shirt unbuttoned, dude. Just sweating, just sitting there, glistening. Like, oozing charisma. Yeah, he's awesome. There's that one scene where they're down in that bunker, like, trying to make the calls to get in touch with Laura Dern to, flip the breakers and stuff. And he's kind of, like, propped up, like, in that paint me like one of your French girls pose.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So good, man. And he is just a blast in this movie. He's completely the wild card and the humor element amongst a bunch of, scientists and so on.
Yeah, and he's the chaotician. Like that they didn't try to hide it.
No.
That he's the chaotic element. He's the one who cuts through the bullshit of of Hammond's desire to make money and Grant and Sattler's desire to have this, like, scientific, opportunity. Like, he cuts through the bullshit and talks, like, about life and what life is and what reality is.
Well, let me ask you, have you ever read the book?
I haven't.
I read the book years and years and years ago. It's probably been, 16 years or something like that since I read the book, but I recall enjoying it. Again, I was probably very biased considering how much I liked the movie and stuff. But there was a lot more information in there about Malcolm's character. There's a lot more stuff in there about chaos theory. And there's a whole lot more stuff about the InGen Corporation, which, if you're watching the movie, only an acute eye would notice InGen. Like, that there's a helicopter that picks them up that says InGen on it. They're kind of like, they're to this movie what Umbrella is to Resident Evil, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of things in the movie that are not necessarily...
Explained.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That are not really explained all that well. Because you don't even really necessarily get a full picture of why Newman is stealing those embryos and stuff.
No, it's for $1 million, which, that is enough of a reason, I guess. Like, nobody's really questioning it, but what's the $1 million for and who's giving it to him? Like, it's not really explained. And I guess there must have been, and this is not too far out there. There must have been already the idea that there would be a sequel and they'd get to explain more. Because this movie, I'm gonna go ahead and maybe blow your mind.
Hit me.
I think that In the Mouth of Madness is loosely based on some of the production and things dealing with this movie.
What?
Because Steven Spielberg, he was talking with Michael Crichton about making this into a movie before it was ever a book. And as the movie was in production, the theme park ride was also in production.
Okay, so that's something that just came to my attention. The other night, Kate and I were watching this movie, and she was reading some trivia about it, and she's like, whoa. You know, it's kind of like what you're just saying. The movie deal was inked before the book came out.
Yep.
And that's usually a sign of a fucking, hot pile of garbage of a book or a movie, but that really kind of surprised me to find that out. So you're saying that you kind of have that whole thing like we had Mouth of Madness, where the book and the movie were coming out simultaneously and stuff.
And there was essentially a theme park that he goes to that is full of horrific occurrences in a black church.
The town he goes to.
Yeah.
Also it's Sam Neill.
Also it's Sam Neill. And the movie seriously was shot 2 months after Jurassic Park came out.
Huh.
There are, I think, some obvious similarities going on, and I hope that you can hang on to your childhood love of this. I think this movie is extremely cynical in that it's a cash grab that just happens to be beloved.
Right. Well, you can even kind of see that in the movie where, they go in the, at one point the kids are running and they go through the Jurassic Park gift shop and you see all this actual Jurassic Park merchandise. They did sell before this movie was even out. They knew that it would be a monumental cash grab.
And the reason that they knew that is because the Indiana Jones stunt show and the Jaws ride were already at Universal, and they were already pulling in millions of dollars from tourists each year.
Sure.
So they knew this was going to be a winner, even if it didn't make enough money in the box office.
Huh.
And it was Steven Spielberg, so it's going to make money.
America's sweetheart, Steven Spielberg.
Yeah. It's, I don't know, I think some people made the best of a shit situation.
Yeah.
Where the script doesn't really the script, I guess, tries to, because it's co-written by Michael Crichton and David Koepp, and David Koepp has worked on a ton of stuff, some of it really bad, some of it pretty okay, some of it good. Anyway, it's obvious that Michael Crichton was like, well, we got to include these scenes from the book, and it's like, well, where's that going? We find out a Triceratops is sick, and
yeah, never. That's a loophole that's never explained in the movie at all.
Yeah, and there's there's obvious service, I guess, to the book, the fact that I'm assuming in the book Samuel L. Jackson's character smokes.
I don't
because
remember.
for some reason they make him smoke in this movie, and if you pay attention, the man isn't inhaling or exhaling smoke. They just make him constantly have a lit cigarette. And the actor, Samuel L. Jackson, is like, I don't want to smoke this. So he's not smoking
Now,
it.
Steve, you got to think back to the time period. He was just pulling the old Bill Clinton. He was smoking but not inhaling. That's how people smoked back in the day.
Just before each scene, he'd stick his cigarette into Monica Lewinsky's pussy.
Yeah, exactly. That's what everybody did back in the day. It's just the time. It's just the times. I'm not justifying it. I'm not saying it's right.
And they say to this day that Monica Lewinsky's pussy lowered lung cancer rates. So way to go, Monica. Way to go. So anyway, there's just stuff that goes on. They mentioned the lysine protocol, and there's no reason to mention it because it wouldn't help in the situation. Because the lysine protocol means they have to give lysine to the dinosaurs or they won't get enough lysine and they'll die. That's eventual. It's not immediate. You're trying to find your grandkids, and one of them's like, what about the lysine protocol? And then they talk about it like, no, that's not the option. It's like, no, it's not an option at all, because it would take weeks for them to die of a lysine deficiency, and you're trying to find your grandkids right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so there's just stuff that like obviously got thrown in from the book that doesn't need to be there. It's not useful. It's not helpful. Like the fact that Sam Neill doesn't get technology, it never comes into play.
That's true. That's kind of one of those things that sort of put out there for him that he never changes his mind about it, nor does it help him, nor does it hurt him. It's just like, yeah, that's kind of a useless plot detail, character detail.
If instead of having to climb over the fence, if he had helped the kids over the fence, and then the fence came on and there was a nearby computer terminal that he had to like input something into to turn the fence off briefly so he could get through, and the little girl had to talk him through it, all of that would have suddenly made sense. All of it would have like been worthwhile, but that doesn't happen. He just never has to do, like, he's like, I don't like computers. The end.
That's a fair enough point, man. If he would have had to help Lex do some hacking.
Yeah. God, they love using that word hacker in this.
I love it, man. I love that the view of hacking is like you actually physically are like flying through this 3D model of a computer and going into things.
And it's going so slow.
Yeah.
Like, it would be so much easier to just either use CDOS or the Apple OS, like, click on it. Just click on it.
I love, dude, like, there's so much technology stuff in this movie that's so fantastically dated. Like, whenever they get into those great Jurassic Park Ford Explorers, and she's like, it has an interactive CD-ROM and a touchscreen. And it's such a big deal.
That sounds like it's a Ford Explorer ad today.
Oh, yeah, dude. Also, P.S., man, like, total dream that I will make into reality. I completely fucking want a guitar decked out in the paint scheme of those Jurassic Park Explorers. Like, the green fading to yellow with the red stripes on the top.
Yeah.
I want a guitar, like, airbrushed in that paint job.
Will you tune it to Raptor levels?
Oh, shit, yeah, I will.
Oh, man, that's going to be a screaming fucking guitar.
It'll be screaming, man. I want that so bad. But the technology in this movie is just
I thought you were about to
dated.
say, but the technology hasn't caught up for us to have Jurassic Park guitars.
It's not quite
It's impossible.
there yet.
Yeah, but okay, so yeah, the technology thing doesn't come in. But, again, like, these are all simple fixes. I guess they probably just had a rush schedule. They probably had to push a lot of the filming really quickly because they're filming on location for a lot of them, the outdoor stuff. And then later you're filming in, North Hollywood or wherever. If you want to go back and take something out, you kind of already spent a ton of money putting an animatronic dinosaur into a field. Maybe you just don't even worry about how that Triceratops got sick.
Yeah. It's just like, whatever, move on.
Yeah, and again, it's the movie has made up to this point over $1 billion.
Holy shit! So
it obviously captured people's imagination, and I'm not here to talk anybody out of liking it. I like it. It's got John Williams' score. That's awesome. Steven Spielberg direction. That's great.
That's one thing I was wanting to talk about is the soundtrack to this is absolute pure fucking magic. It is my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, yes. People will always associate that just opening score with dinosaurs. Like, you're always going to think about dinosaurs when you hear it. Just like when you hear the Harry Potter theme, like it takes you to Hogwarts. Like, this takes you to Jurassic Park, which would be a real cool thing if it could exist.
Yeah, absolutely so. It would be the absolute coolest. And, one thing I'll say about this movie, because, as I mentioned earlier, this show that you're listening to is primarily first and foremost, a horror movie podcast. I will go out on a limb here and say that this movie is scarier than most scary movies.
It has a natural, awesome tension.
Yeah.
Which is there are fucking dinosaurs on an island. It's awesome.
There are
and they're
huge killing
scary.
machine
Yes.
animals that don't know you, don't know how to react to you, and they're fucking animals, so they will annihilate you, and they're unpredictable. There is a really great sense of fear and terror and tension throughout this movie that, like I said, I think is better than goddamn like 90% of all horror movies that I watch. I don't know. Do you agree with that? Do you think this is a scary movie?
I think that this is a few well-placed scenes away from being just a horror movie.
Yeah.
And I think when I see those scenes, and I'll say they're basically the tree car scene.
Oh yeah.
And the scene where they're in the field and that huge herd of dinosaurs comes running at them. Mm-hmm. Like, what those scenes do is inject some peril that isn't related to the dinosaurs, mm-hmm. which seems like, oh, well, it's still peril. People are still tense. And they are, but it's for kids. It's going to ease up that tension of, oh, dinosaurs are monsters that might eat me. Like, it gives them a moment to rest, and then the next time the dinosaurs are back on, it's just like, oh, cool dinosaurs again. Like, it's really smart, because obviously if you made this just an adult movie, it probably wouldn't have made over $1 billion. Like, if you make it so that kids can feel tense and not feel like in the end Tyrannosaurus Rex is gonna like be outside their window at night, you got a perfect balance. And I think they did that. They did a really good job of balancing so that you don't just end up with a pure horror movie, but it easily could have become that.
Oh, this movie scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, dude. Like, especially the scenes where, like, when Newman is there roaming around and he gets, lost in Jurassic Park, and he's rolling around in all that mud that looks like it was imported Wendy's Frosties all scattered around the park. That Jurassic Park mud is just something else.
Yeah.
But that scene where he's with the Dilophosaurus, which is a very not real dinosaur, by the way.
Yes, I know. No such dinosaur that ever spit venom or had a frilly neck. Yeah.
No, But man, when that thing is like in his Jeep and stuff, and the camera pans over to it, and its frill is all out and stuff, man, that scared the dog shit out of me when I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really effective, like, because it looks alien.
Yeah.
Like, even if you know dinosaurs, you look at that and you're like, what the fuck is that?
Well,
like,
and it's real. Like, when they show that part, all those parts with the Dilophosaurus, now that I'm thinking about it, might all be real. I don't know that there's ever a CG Dilophosaurus in this movie.
I don't know.
It looks so good, man. And plus, it just kills the fuck out of poor old Newman.
Yeah. When I first saw the sign for Dilophosaurus, thought it said Dilphosaurus, and I was like, two things crossed my mind. One was, a dad I'd like to fuckasaurus.
What?
So it's like, it's basically Chris Pratt but a dinosaur.
Yeah,
like,
Dilf. Yeah.
Or other side, a dinosaur I'd like to fuckasaurus. So it's just a regular dinosaur, but it's like super buff.
So this is going back to the audition kid again.
Yeah, again, listen, all right, I'm going to admit it, okay? I'm a dinosexual.
Speaking of
I
things...
jerked off to this movie.
Steve, speaking of sexual themes in this movie...
Uh-huh.
I'm just going to put something out here about what I think this movie might really be, at least what the filmmakers were trying to get across.
Okay.
And it just hit me while I was watching this movie, at least halfway under the table drunk the other night.
Okay.
I think what they're trying to tell us in this movie is to fear the impending wave of the lesbian global domination.
Okay.
All right.
I see what you're going for. Let's hear it.
Okay. So, of course, there's this theme throughout the movie. All the dinosaurs in the park are girls.
Yes.
But, as Jeff Goldblum reminds us, nature finds a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, nature does indeed find a way. These dinosaurs, because they have frog DNA in them, can switch genders and find ways to procreate without needing no mans on the premises, right?
Right.
Now, this whole lesbian power imagery is predated way earlier in the movie. Now, let me ask you if you noticed this, Steve.
Okay.
whenever the team is flying into Jurassic Park on the helicopter, right?
Uh-huh.
Sam Neill's character is trying to work his seatbelt, right? And he can't get it to work.
Yeah.
He has two female end seatbelts that he just kind of bashes together.
And he's rubbing them together.
And they won't click. There's no insertion. He's like, uh-oh, female to female ends. This won't work. What does he do? He finds a way, Steve. He ties the motherfuckers together.
Life finds a way. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. No, listen. Great.
Are you feeling it?
Awesome. Yes. I remember reading a feminist short story. I cannot remember the name of it. It was from the 80s, I believe, where it was a planet of women. And of course, anybody who knows anything about genetics, if you could make two women create a child, it would always be female.
Yeah.
So it would be an island ruled by women. Except the one problem is that they say that amphibian DNA makes them actually switch to the other sex.
Right.
So somehow they began creating sperm.
Well, let me ask you this, Steve.
Okay.
Are there any females in this movie that get killed by the female dinosaurs?
No, and you know what is real interesting? That one point where the Tyrannosaurus looks over at Laura Dern and gives her the guns, the finger guns.
Yep.
And she's like, and then you look back over and the Tyrannosaurus Rex is wearing a shirt that says ladies gotta have it.
Exactly.
I don't know what that means. Mm-hmm. Ladies gotta have it though.
So what I'm saying is this movie is all about an island of man-hating lesbian dinosaurs.
What? Oh man. These goddamn lesbian dinosaurs. I'm tired of these motherfucking lesbian dinosaurs on my motherfucking remote island. Hold on to your butts.
Hold on to your butts. Exactly.
That line in particular upsets me because I know that line is just to get laughs out of 5-year-olds.
Oh yeah.
An adult said butts, and they say it twice.
Yeah.
That's not an adult man's not gonna say that. Anyway.
So yeah, lesbian dinosaurs. That's what this movie's about.
That's awesome. Now, I just read this today, and I don't know how old this is, but a fan theory about Jurassic Park that I think is maybe going to blow your hair back.
Hit me.
There are no dinosaurs.
Bullshit. What?
There are no dinosaurs. These are genetic approximations of what dinosaurs would be. The creatures are there, but they're not dinosaurs, which is the fan theory is then used to explain why the Velociraptor doesn't have feathers and why it's too big.
It also breathes warm air, like its nose on the glass door of the kitchen. It breathes hot air.
Yeah. Why the Tyrannosaurus Rex can run 60 miles per hour without its legs shattering, which it would because they had hollow bones.
Yeah, they were probably scavengers, yeah.
Why the Dilophosaurus exists at all.
Okay.
Like, the explanation is that these are genetic experiments gone awry, basically. Like, they were trying to recreate dinosaurs, but they had to keep incorporating all these different things to make them look like people would expect them to look so that it will be a good theme park. And one of the main evidences of this is that Hammond talks about, basically Hammond is a flim-flam artist. He talks about how his first operation was a flea circus where he, tricked people into believing he had trained a bunch of fleas to do acrobatics and things. And basically the idea is that people are looking at these things thinking he has brought dinosaurs back, but in fact, these are just genetic abominations that he's created. He's essentially a Frankenstein.
More of a Dr. Moreau than anything.
Yeah, yes, and that is pretty perfect because
they are chimeras of sorts.
Yeah, so like this, what interests me in that is that this would then be like after a number of other experiments. I don't really want to see this. I don't want a prequel to any film franchise ever again. Just ever. But I'd like to see a prequel where they're basically like dinosaurs in a lab, and one of them's like, "Kill me!
I don't want to live."
Yeah. So yeah, I read that and I was like, that's interesting. I don't know how it changes the movie at all, but it's an interesting theory.
Well, that's a funny thing too, though. You know, when you watch this movie, and especially at the very first kind of main scene there at the excavation site, where they're talking about how they theorized that dinosaurs evolved into birds, which at that time was such a new theory that, you know, there's people, well, like the fucking Dream Child is like, yeah, right, and stuff like this. And it's like, now you watch this and you're like, well, duh. Of course they fucking evolved into birds. Like, look at them. But
yeah,
one thing that I think is really cool that I actually just noticed for the first time watching this, you know, the movie starts to talking about how they evolved into birds. And then you spend this whole movie with these big, huge, terrifying dinosaurs and stuff like this. And then the very last thing in the movie is them flying off of the island in the helicopter. The kids are asleep and stuff. And Grant looks out the window, and there's that flock of birds. They're like, I don't know, storks or something, seagulls, herrings. I can't remember what they are, herons, whatever they're called. There's like a flock of them like flying, and the camera zooms in on the birds. And it's like, also, this is what they became later. You know, it's like these things that were once so fearsome and terrifying and scary and stuff, then just evolve into these peaceful, serene-looking birds flying over the water. I think that's kind of a cool contrast to this movie, is saying that, I don't know, you know, shit that was once big and scary later on becomes something very placid and not very terrifying at all.
Yeah, and that's interesting, you know, from a kid's perspective, to, you know, again, because you want the kid audience, it's interesting to have that element just so kids, again, walk away feeling comfortable. Like, you know, the dinosaurs still are kind of around, and I'm not going to get eaten by one, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, they're still here, but they're not going to kill me.
Yeah. I think that it happens a lot in this film, that they're just like these fact dumps that are for the people in the audience that really, you know, love dinosaurs. Because they'll just say stuff about dinosaurs, and it's like, it'll be kind of related or maybe fully related, but sometimes just, you know, not exactly important. But it's always cool. It's always like, yeah, dinosaur facts are cool. Okay, yeah. You can just throw that out anytime, and all right, I'm interested. Let's hear it.
Now, let me put one thing out here about this movie, Steve, because me and my buddy Mitch, I talked about earlier on the show, he and I are both gigantic fans of this movie and have been for years now. We had a conversation a long time ago about something that would make this movie so much better.
What it is.
Okay. So imagine that everything in this movie is exactly as it is now. Okay. Nothing has changed. No different actors, no different editing, no different shots. The order of the movie, everything is precisely as it is, like how you know it, right? Only with one change. So, you know, of course, the fantastic kitchen scene where the kids are hiding from the raptors in the kitchen. And they're hiding in those stainless steel cupboards and stuff, and velociraptors around. It's a really wonderful, super, super intense moment in the movie. Really, really, really stands out to me as one of the coolest parts in the movie. So imagine if in that scene, right, the kids, they're hiding inside of one of those cabinets, and then that velociraptor makes a run at them to try and take a big hunk out of them, right? Only then it hits its head on that stainless steel reflection of the kids hiding in the other cabinet, right?
Okay.
Now imagine if just right then, at that very time, after it runs headfirst into that stainless steel cabinet, if the camera zooms in on the raptor, and the raptor goes, "Ow, my dino head." And then the movie just goes on absolutely the same after that. Nothing else is different.
He has a raised bump.
Yeah.
And there's just like little dinosaur-esque birds flying around his head. Yeah. Ow, my dino head.
Ow, my dino head. And then the movie just continues.
Yeah. No mention. And just as they're flying away, the kid goes, "We heard a velociraptor talk."
What? And then the credits.
What?
But if it's just never acknowledged, it's never made a big deal out of, and it has kind of a funny voice, Ow, my dino head.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly support this idea. It would make the movie 10 times better, maybe. I mean, it would have made $10 billion in the theater if it had just included the single line, "Ow, my dino head."
Like, dude, imagine just how, crestfallen you would be in 1993 if you're watching this movie and you're in the palm of its hands and you're just, enraptured, oh, my God, the technology. I can't believe what they're doing. I can't believe what I'm seeing. And did that thing just fucking talk?
What the hell?
Yeah. It said, "Ow, my dino head." It didn't even say a cool line.
People would be wearing "Ow, my dino head" shirts around. That'd be awesome.
One day we're going to get some Dead and Lovely merchandise and we're going to have a fucking Ow, my dino head t-shirt.
We'll have "Ow, my dino head" and we'll have the Cinnabites Cinnabon crossover.
Absolutely. Oh my God, dude. Yeah, we have a lot of potential right here.
Yeah. I just, a little bit ago, it just hit me that the scene with the dream child, he gets threatened with claws.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a good nod to
yeah, you're right.
Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah.
Damn, that is cool. And that's cool too, because I remember Wes Craven saying one of the original inspirations for Freddy Krueger is that he would have claws like an animal because that's a primordial fear in humans and stuff, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, so I thought that was, that just crossed my mind.
I'll tell you another thing that's cool about that scene too that, again, just hit me watching it this time, which I've seen this movie, I mean, seriously, at least 50 or 60 times, I'm sure. But I don't know, watching these movies for this show, it's so fun because you do just analyze them differently and pay closer attention than you would any other time,
Yeah.
But during that scene where he's talking to the dream child and stuff, he actually outlines the raptors' hunting strategies exactly as they play out later in the movie. They're like, oh, this one will be in front of you, but there'll actually be two on either side of you because they hunt in packs and stuff like this. Like, he outlines exactly how... What's the hunter guy's name? He outlines how he dies.
Ugh. I don't know. I don't remember that guy's name at all.
Clever girl.
Yeah, the clever girl guy.
That's who he is, exactly.
Yeah, that's really interesting. They really do set up that scene pretty well. That is interesting to me though, because that scene, while it's cool, it doesn't seem like you'd be laying track for it that early. It's just a real brief thing. I guess though, honestly though, he also lays out just how badass. I noticed that there are, I think, 5 instances where they're just laying out how badass raptors are. So when it comes to the raptors, there's already a lot of tension built up. So saying all that, it leads to that scene, but it also builds up just how cool and how scary the raptors are. So yeah, I guess that just keeps going on up until the point where we actually deal with the raptors, because you see the raptors in their cage, but we don't get to see them. They kill a guy named Joffrey, which is awesome.
Shit, yeah.
Anytime a person named Joffrey dies, now it's always going to be a good occasion.
Fuck yeah.
But we just keep getting these instances of how badass the raptors are before we fully see them. It's cool.
It's true. Yeah, it kind of predates whenever they're dealing with these things, that they're badass because you've heard people talk about them.
Yeah.
That's good storytelling right there. So, overall, Steve, what are your final thoughts about this movie, and what do you give it on the old 1 to 10 scale?
Okay, so, as I said, the acting's all great. I have some problems with the story. I think the direction's great. I think the music is great. I think the CG is still... it holds up. The animatronics are awesome. It's hard though, because I watch it and I'm still irritated by all the little things. But it does still have a lot of fun in it, and I still enjoy it. So, I think, as far as Spielberg movies go, this probably isn't up there too high on my list. But as far as dinosaur movies go, it's A1. Like, it's number one with a bullet. There's nothing that's going to compete with it.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
I'd say this is a 7 for me.
A 7 out of 10.
A 7, and all of its negative points are all those times that the story just irritates me. And I think they could have been fixed, but at the same time, it's like we've got a deal going for a ride that's coming out. You got to get the movie out. Like,
yeah,
I understand the constraints and stuff. That's why I still think this, in the end, is a good movie and well worth watching, especially for kids. I imagine kids still today would enjoy this movie.
Oh, yeah, absolutely so, man. It is one of those ones that, again, I think because of the limited use of CGI will remain, I think, pretty timeless for a long time because so much of it does still look so convincing. As I said, going into this movie, I knew that I would love this movie before I even saw it because it had dinosaurs, and I love dinosaurs. So whenever I saw this in theaters, it absolutely blew my mind. And like I said, we saw it a couple of times, which back then was unheard of for us being so broke and stuff. And then, after it came out for home rental and DVD and stuff like that, I've watched it a million more times. It's one of those ones that I have seen. I don't know. It's probably one of the movies I've seen just about more than, almost anything I've seen in my life. I've seen this movie a million fucking times. I love it. I think that the effects, like I said, still hold up extremely well because they were intelligently used, not just freewheeling. Well, it would be easy if we just did this all CGI, so let's just do it that way. It was like, no, if we can do it practical, we'll do it practical. If we absolutely can't, we'll use the computers. I think that's just fucking smart and helps make the movie a lot more timeless. Because even, dude, like, if you go back through and you watch, Jurassic World that came out like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It already looks more dated than this fucking movie does.
Yeah, I actually thought when I watched Jurassic World that it already looked dated while I was watching it.
I know, dude.
It was already just like, this is disappointing. They spent so much money on this. I think it would have more of that sense of awe that you had when you see Jurassic Park for the first time.
I know, and it's because I think that there are little to no puppets or animatronic models in Jurassic World. Like, I think that there's maybe a part or two, like, where there's just sort of like a patch of dinosaur skin, but, not with, like, a head attached to it. It's just for, like, when a character, like when Chris Pratt is, like, touching one of the raptors or whatever. I think that there might maybe be some actual textured, faux dinosaur skin, but there's basically no animatronics in that movie, and it looks fake as fuck. It's kind of like when you go back through and you watch, Prometheus or Alien Covenant versus Aliens, and you're like, oh yeah, there's not even remotely a comparison. Which one looks better? The original Jurassic Park still looks fucking better than any of those movies that are coming out, 20, almost 30 years later and don't even remotely look as good. I think that should be kind of a gold standard for visual effects. Is like, does your movie look as good as Jurassic Park? No? Okay, well, go back to the drawing board and build some puppets or robots or something,
Yeah.
So
let's get some robots.
Get them robots in here. Get your damn computers out of the game. I can see what you mean about some of the story stuff. But to me, it's like, it's kind of like any other Michael Crichton thing, like Congo or anything else, or Outbreak, those are ones we should have mentioned earlier in our countdown. But, a huge scientific breakthrough goes bad and it wreaks havoc on people. Like, that's kind of really the main moral of this story, is that, playing God and doing stuff with technology just because you can doesn't mean that you should. And it does kind of get sort of muddied up through this whole, here's this couple, the guy doesn't like technology and we don't think he wants to have kids, but then he thinks he's okay with kids and stuff. Like, okay, I can see what you mean now. That does kind of muddy it up a little bit. But to me, the main message of the movie is, yeah, fucking with nature just because you can will not give you power over it,
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the main theme of the movie, and I do love it. There's so many iconic scenes, man. The T-Rex chase scene, and the T-Rex, roughing up the car that the kids are in and stuff, and pushing down that plexiglass. God damn, dude, it is so sick, man. I still think that is one of the coolest scenes, I think, in any movie ever. The sense of just like terror where that T-Rex is pushing down on that, plexiglass on top of the kids and stuff. The kids are screaming and all that.
It's really frightening, yeah.
Oh, man, it's so cool. Plus, extra cool points. Mastodon, one of my favorite bands, on their first full-length record, Remission, the very first track, Crusher Destroyer, starts off with a sample of that scene. You hear the T-Rex roar, and really faintly, you can hear Lex go, "Timmy?" At the very first that track, yeah. So that's one of the things that made me fall in love with Mastodon too. Is like that's the very first song on the record, and I'm like, oh shit, they used a Jurassic Park sample. That's sick. So yeah, good on Mastodon for taking advantage of this movie. So I love it. I've seen it a million times. I think it flows great. There's some well interspersed humor and some really well placed tension and really scary moments and stuff. I love all the lesbian empowerment through the movie.
Yeah, that is awesome.
I can't say it any other way. I fucking love this movie. I've seen it a million times. I'll watch it a million times more. And I think that I will always have a good time and be wrapped up in the score and some of those set pieces and the animatronics and CGI and stuff. For me, this movie's a motherfucking 10 out of 10.
Woo!
Woo! Perfect 10, man. I can't help it. I just can't help it. I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad. I'm really gonna be thinking now because it keeps crossing my mind how much this movie is like In the Mouth of Madness.
Yeah, that's so cool that you point that out now.
Yeah, I really wanna look that up and see if John Carpenter's ever talked about that.
Yeah, really.
So, what are we covering next week, Ben?
Well, next week we're going to be covering a movie that is likely not going to be a 10 out of 10. We're going to be covering a movie from the great, Death Valley of horror movies from the late 90s to early 2000s that we went through there, where there were basically I won't say no, because
there were some good horror movies.
There were some good horror movies, but by and large, a whole lot of shitty horror movies came out during this time period, including one, Jeepers Creepers.
Where'd you get those peepers?
Now, I've watched this movie one time, probably about like 16 years ago, I think.
I saw it probably when it came out.
Yeah. I watched it with a bunch of friends in high school.
Yeah, I don't remember it well at all.
I don't either.
But I remember not liking it even then. So
see, I remember not liking it then either, but at the same time, like, dude, that had to be one of the first horror movies I ever watched.
Wow.
I really think that it was. I really think this was one of the first ones that I ever watched. Because I remember prior to this, like, being over at, a friend's house, and they had on, a couple of scary movies that we were just kind of watching in between, farting around and talking and stuff. But I think this is one of the first ones that I really sat down and like watched. So maybe my judgment from back then is flawed, and maybe I'll go back through and watch this and be like, actually, this was really fun.
I hope you start having you start remembering things that you had forgotten for 16 years. Like, things just start falling back into place, and you realize that Jeepers Creepers stole your soul.
Oh shit!
From then on, it was just all downhill. Black Soul Ben.
Maybe I go through the movie and like Jeepers Creepers is like, there's a scene down in his workshop where he's like swirling a guitar, or like drinking bourbon.
Yeah, he's just talking a lot about Steve Vai,
listening to Frank Zappa.
Yeah, awesome shit.
He's eating curries and stuff all the time.
Yeah. He's got a cute little dog.
Yeah. I'm like,
wait a sec. This isn't a horror movie at all.
It's the story of my life.
It's the story of two teenagers being an asshole to this guy.
Yeah, this guy was cool, man. Well, we're going to find out next week. I hope that I enjoy it, but my expectations are low.
Yeah, me too.
Well, in the meantime, Steve, where can they find us on them social medias, and where can they drop us an email to suggest other movies and stuff that we ought to cover?
Well, you can always find us at Dead Lovely Pod on Instagram and Twitter. We have a Facebook group, Dead and Lovely Horror Podcast. And you can email us, deadandlovelypod@gmail.com.
There's been some great activity on that Facebook group that we have here lately. There's been a lot of people posting pictures and stories and comments and stuff like that. I've really been enjoying checking up on those. So you guys, please continue to do so. Y'all tickle my funny bone. You guys can find me on them social medias on Instagram and Twitter at Ben Eller Guitars.
Oh, and you can find me at Steven Spratling, Steven with a V, just like Steven Spielberg. And I think we should just go ahead and close out with this little piece of information. Michael Crichton was a climate change denier.
Nuh-uh.
Goodbye!
What?